call this into session.
This is the meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Information Technology Ad Hoc Committee for May 23rd, 2017. It is 4 p.m. On the call of the roll, Member Josh Wolf.
Here. Present.
Josh Wolf present. Member Bruce Wolf.
Here.
Wolf present. Chair Moss.
Present.
Moss present. And I would like to note that we have a guest of Member Eric Yeldon today.
Present.
Do we have any agenda changes today?
There are no agenda changes that I know of. Next on the agenda is item number 2, approval of the April 25th Information Technology Ad Hoc Committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Wait, sorry.
Minutes.
Sorry, I have a minutes edit. I think that on under item 4 on the meeting minutes, it has Member Wolf suggesting to invite Ted Hahn to provide a presentation. I believe that was me who suggested inviting Ted Hahn, and his last name is spelled H-A-N.
That's correct.
What's that?
That's correct.
What was the spelling of the name?
H-A-N.
H-A-N.
Yeah.
I will make that amendment.
Do we need a motion to accept?
No,
The
we're
change?
already, I think that's just a non-substantive change. Plus, we'll vote to include all those changes and get public comment on that.
Perfect. So should we take some public comment on the minutes
Are
then?
there any other changes?
Any other changes? Then let's take public comment on the minutes from the last meeting. And seeing no public comment.
On the motion to adopt the minutes as amended, Member Josh Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Bruce Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Chair Moss.
Aye.
Moss, aye. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
So what I was trying to convey in this past month, though I didn't really have time to sit down and write it out correctly, is that if a requester requests documents, there should be a legal basis for why the documents are withheld or why they're redacted. There might be an inventory of what documents are there and which are going to be withheld. That's normally the way it goes. If the department is just going to go completely out there and make up a lot of false claims and rants and go all over the place as a response for why they're not turning over documents, that is not general public comment. That's an excuse for not turning over documents. I could stand here for up to 3 minutes and sing and dance, yell and scream, swear, do whatever I want, and that would be general public comment. And I think there was a confusion in terms over this past month. It's not acceptable for me to have that kind of response when I ask for documents from the Arts Commission.
Any other further public comment? And does not look like it. Moving on to the next agenda item.
Next on the agenda, item number 4, file number 16103, hearing, use of automatic email responses and out-of-office coverage in relation to compliance with the Sunshine Ordinance.
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. Good to be back here again. David German, Policy Manager at Department of Technology.
Excellent. Well, so this is the first time for you before this committee. You were actually before the Compliance and Amendment Committee last time. And this is the IT Ad Hoc Committee. So these 3 members were not at the prior hearing where I was. So I'll be hearing a lot of the same stuff again.
Okay.
But for their benefit, I would like you to repeat some of it. But I do also recall from the last time that you came before a committee, you had talked about that there was a group working on a policy or are some best practices, and so I would certainly like an update on that.
Okay.
And then in the time since we last talked, we heard some feedback from the San Francisco Arts Commission, which seemed to contradict some of the best practices that you'd recommended last time, and so we also wanted to discuss that.
Sure.
But do you have some presentation for us to start?
Since the group of you were not at the first one, why don't I do a quick overview from the last time of what was said? It might be helpful. The city email system is not owned by the Department of Technology. In other words, the departments are free to use it in ways that they choose. So we don't have any specific control over them. So when it comes to out of office, setting those rules up, they are done internally by the departments. And although we do through the PIOs have been talking to them about setting up a standardized practice. And where we left it at the last hearing or discussion here was we had started working on a policy. Brought another copy of it right here, and I'll reread the central part of it to you. Just a second. And I didn't bring my reading glasses, sorry. The most important part right now says anyone responsible for managing and responding to public records requests, including sunshine requests, are required to respond to requests within 24 hours to 10 days of receipt, depending on the request type. If the individual is out of office when the request is received, they must provide an out-of-office message with contact information for an alternate contact within the department who will be responsible for managing and responding to the request on behalf of the department. That being said, there's sort of a common sense thing here that we hope the departments would do is that they would not have sunshine requests coming to John or Jane Doe, whoever the employee is, but they would set up a sunshine box. We do that. MTA does it. A lot of other departments do. That's more or less of a general overview from last time. So how can I help this group now?
Do any of the members have questions based on that sort of brief synopsis that we've been given so far?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for coming. Appreciate that.
No problem.
So what email system are you referring to? Is it like Office 365?
Office 365.
Okay, great. And so I guess one of the issues that's happening here is that there is creating like a big bucket for when, there are a couple of scenarios. One scenario is when a general request comes into a department. They usually will go or be directed to public information officer or a designated custodian for the department.
Correct.
Okay, then there's the other request that goes directly to a person. Okay, and frequently people, because we have this enhancement of the California Public Records Act to provide for immediate disclosure requests, the requirement, as you know, requires a response by the end of the next business day. So if somebody is out of town, out of the office, at a conference, on vacation, whatever case may be, they won't necessarily get that that request and be able to fulfill it. And lots of times when people set up an auto response, the person who may be also watching for that may also not be out of the office. So we're looking to see if you folks have any technology that might be a little more comprehensive that a department might be able to use within the Office 365 system, that may be some special feature or some sort of plug-in or extension or something that is special as part of the package that the city has purchased.
Okay. There's two parts to that question that I can, or one I can answer. One I've brought along Chad Bradford, who is our email expert, and he can address the technical side of it. We did talk about this last time. Really, if you look at the ordinance, every single city employee is responsible for responding. And I sort of posted a question back to the committee. I said, we really could try to have every single employee put an out-of-office response or question, whatever, as part of their signature. But realize that it's going to take a huge amount of resources to train those 23,000 employees, and then on the next day it'll be out of date because we have how many new employees coming in. It'd be an unsustainable thing to do. But the reality also, I think, of sunshine requests is that, say in my department in DT, most likely those requests are coming from, say, the second level managers above. And we do a pretty good job of training our management staff that sunshine requests go to Lauren Jones, who's sitting back here, who's our PIO, to the DT sunshine box. You know, they go there. You know, if we get one, we forward them there. So, you know, it is a training thing, which we would, you know, try to help, but also it's something that this group could also probably look toward changing the rules about that as part of the good government guide. You know, department heads will be responsible for informing their management staff that they have to do certain things to their out of offices when they're gone. Okay, at least above that level.
If the city attorney would be open to allowing some input from us for the good government guide, because we have some differences of opinion on the interpretation of some passages in there.
Bear in mind, my background with the city, which we'll be talking about much, is publishing. I was that for a line. I know a lot about document retention. When it comes to the technical side of email, I brought along my expert.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So is there anything you can add about there's an automated way to do any of this?
Sure. Hi, my name's Chad Bradford. I manage the team at DT that supports Office 365. I think probably one of the easiest options. There are different takes you can do. I think one of the things we discussed about last time, which is, you know, someone suggested, or could you use inbox rules that when you come in, it has certain keywords, you could forward it to someone else. You can do it that way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to do it. There's a lot of, you know, ways that you could solve this. I think that the trick is coming up with the easiest way that you could spread across all the departments. And kind of what David hit on earlier was departments could utilize something like shared mailboxes, where each department had a shared mailbox that was specifically for sunshine requests. You could have multiple people monitor that mailbox, so that way if a request comes in and the primary person responsible is out, that person could set 1, 2, 3 delegates to manage the mailbox in their absence. So that might be an easier way to track those types of requests.
So you know, on that, you know, when the San Francisco Art Commission, which is one of the bodies that, you know, is frequently before us with complaints filed against them, and a lot of times it involves a missed out-of-office IDR. They said that they tried that and it just worked miserably for them, and that's why they've gone back to another system where they have rules that spot IDRs as they come in. And
Filters.
Yeah, filters. Yeah, and so I'm not really quite sure what the big problem was for them, but they said that didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to exactly what their problem was. I know within different departments, there's different levels of expertise with technical systems. Some departments have more experience managing things like shared mailboxes. Some departments don't, so there might be kind of a training difference. And in some cases, for their workflows, you know, maybe inbox rules work really well for them.
Who's responsible for providing the training of a citywide, system-wide available system? Granted that you say you may not own a certain domain within a certain department, but who's responsible for general training of ubiquitous software?
So I think some of that responsibility lies within the department themselves to typically there's people who are familiar with the system. When they hire on additional help, they're responsible for training them, or if they need training that they can't provide, they'll come to DT. When we originally migrated the city to Office 365, I was part of the team that went to every department and helped them get migrated to the new system. We actually did very in-depth training with each individual department with the expectation that then going forward, they would train on additional staff. I think some of the challenges, though, is there going to be these departments like the Arts Commission who don't necessarily have a dedicated IT department, and so they're going to have some additional challenges that maybe a larger department, like DPH, who does have a dedicated IT department, doesn't have.
Doesn't it then fall back on you folks as the default?
I'm not sure I'd say it would fall back on the default, but we absolutely will always provide additional training. If any department comes to the DT service desk and says, hey, we really need help on how to do this, we absolutely will help them out.
Okay, thank you.
Let me take a shot at that one also. If I can.
Go ahead, and then I have a question.
Okay, sure. So it sounds like part of the problem is the Arts Commission. Again, the city has email administrators in almost every department. Again, I brought up MTA. They have a very robust system for dealing with sunshine and out-of-office requests. We do also. If there is a problem, then we would be happy to work with that particular department about it. They are a very small department. I've dealt with them for many years on the publishing side. Again, they have people doing many different jobs there, so the expertise level may not be that high. So, again, we do train when the systems start. Staff changes. Like I said, we'd be happy to work with them.
Thank you.
So I'm a little confused how the shared mailbox is actually a viable solution. And the reason that I ask that is that unless the public is sending it to that mailbox that's been identified, and they're not required to under the Sunshine Ordinance, the shared mailbox doesn't really address the problem. Or are we talking about identifying that key phrase and forwarding it to the shared mailbox? Can you elaborate on?
Yes. So I'm going to try, and if I get this wrong, Chad will come up and correct me on this. By shared mailbox, we mean there is a mailbox that is not david.german@DT, on, that gets sunshine requests. Because I go away. There is a sunshine email address. It is not associated with anybody. Lauren checks it every single day. There's delegated people who, if she's not around, also check it. So that way, DT doesn't miss sunshine requests that go to that box.
Those are
Right, but
general.
my concern here is that if the public doesn't follow your directions to use that box and they send it to you personally on Thursday before you head to your trip to the French Riviera or whatever, how it's not going to naturally go into that shared box. So how is this shared box solution addressing that issue on a larger individual? Every email address of every city employee is responsible to deal with a immediate disclosure request that comes in.
Right.
So does this shared box actually address that?
No, that shared box. Okay, first off, the first part of your question was, how does the public know? On our website, it says sunshine requests should go to this address. I don't know how many other departments do that, but I would hope that they do it on their individual websites. So, the public, when they're looking to do that, they know that that's the most, efficient way to get a request in. Now, we all know that somebody is going to know somebody in a department and then want to send a sunshine request in. And so what I would call the second level of this is what I already said, that a large percentage of those non-DT email sunshine requests, first and foremost, will go to the director of the department, but then might come to me. I've gotten one in like 5 years. And a lesser amount will go to, say, a wiring person in public safety. I don't know that there's a good way, if that wiring person is going to Italy the next day, to make sure of that. I don't think there's an automated way to handle that.
Okay, so as far as I understand it, retraining the public to follow the Sunshine Ordinance emails that have been delineated to make this process easier won't comport with the requirements necessarily. So if someone sends that email to the wiring guy, the public is not required to go to the website, identify what the Sunshine email address should be, and then direct it that way.
Right.
So I'm curious if it would be possible within the Office 365 environment to essentially have I guess this would be done on a department by department basis, but technically speaking, would it be possible for all the emails to go through a filtering process where it identifies the term immediate disclosure request and automatically forwards those emails to a delineated email for the purpose of collecting sunshine requests.
Okay, before I call Chad back up for the technical answer to that question, with all due respect, let me differ with you on the way you describe training people who are making sunshine requests. I would tend to look at departments posting information on the websites on how to deal with us in every way, shape, or form, be it a sunshine request, as a way of making information available. I mean, if I'm a member of the public and I'm looking to find out how to make a sunshine request, I'm going to call the department or I'm going to go to their website, and we do tell people, please use this email address. That's not specifically training them, that's providing information.
Sure, and I think there's nothing wrong with directing the public to use this email address, but in the event that they access through some other means, is there a way to address that?
Chad?
The short answer is yes. You could create specific rules that are server-side that look for specific keywords and take an action on them, like redirect them to a mailbox. So you can do it. Whether or not it's appropriate or a good idea to actually do that, I can't say for sure. There's a larger issue of what are the chances you're going to start catching, emails that shouldn't be caught by that. So those kinds of rules have a lot of challenges around them by using them. But yes, you can create those kinds of rules on the back end.
And what would be the process to negotiate those additional concerns before implementation? Would that be a city attorney discussion, or what would need to happen to implement that sort of a solution?
If a department came to DT, a department that was a person who was responsible for managing that department's email, and they said, I want this rule in place to forward messages that have these keywords to my users to this mailbox, then that's something that we could do for them. I think I can't speak too much for that. Maybe it's a city attorney thing. Maybe it's something that varies from department to department based on policies that they have.
I would say, if you set up a filter for immediate disclosure request, immediate plus disclosure plus request is required. If it doesn't come through for some reason, either there's something wrong with the filter or it doesn't have it as being compliant with the 6725.
I think that would address most of the problems that we've had with this.
Right. So I think if something like that were to happen, or if any individual custodian knows they're going to be out of the office for more than one business day, that they either set up a filter that will copy or redirect all their email to the general common Sunshine account that's being suggested. So it's just a thought.
So it seems to me that the best practices really should be that any email that comes not from an SF.gov domain, because there could be discussion about immediate disclosure requests from one department to another. But any outside email that has the words immediate disclosure request should automatically go to each department's immediate disclosure email address that's checked on a daily basis, and that there really isn't, once you filter out all of the internal email, there really doesn't seem to be any compelling argument that other stuff would be ensnared in there that would be at all problematic, because each of those emails themselves would likely be a public record that wouldn't be of a confidential nature.
Okay, so again, let me regurgitate a little bit here. First off, when it comes to the specific Sunshine box, email box, that is going to catch any and all requests. And if it's delegated properly, that there's a primary person and others watching, it will catch all of the requests to that are sent there.
How would it do that?
If they're sent to that email
Oh,
address.
but it's not going to capture ones that are sent to other employees.
Right, there's not.
And
I
that's
was
what we're
getting
trying
there.
to address.
I know, I'm getting there. The next piece of this is that O365 is a decentralized email system. The departments control what goes on in their particular instances of O365. DT is in no position to order them to do something like you're proposing. Also, you were asking then who to take this up with. Well, of course, I would start with the city attorney, and that'd be an interesting question since the city attorney is not presently on O365. They don't feel that it's secure enough for their own uses. Excuse me.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
City attorney.
Oh.
They're still on Lotus Notes.
Oh.
Okay, and to add on top of that is there are various rules, and we'll get to this on the document side also. HIPAA requirements, was it PIA ones, that if they got into the wrong box, we are violating laws here. So, again, with all due respect, I don't think that's quite a workable solution. I do think the dedicated boxes and training management staff is a workable solution. To a large part, and to work with, it's on a case-by-case basis. And using the Arts Commission as an example, it sounds like there is a problem around the Arts Commission, and we'd be happy to assist with them.
I feel like I've heard it from other departments as well. Certainly it would probably be helpful if you did reach out to the Arts Commission to figure out what's going on with them.
Sure.
The last we heard from them, they seem to have landed on a solution that pleased them, which was rules-based, specifically around immediate disclosure request.
Okay.
And I think that what you've proposed is still not going to get addressed, because even if there's a central box, if somebody's out of office, either you set it up so that all emails get forwarded to that box, or you set up a rule or a filter that looks for IDR and then forwards it to that box.
So this gets into another area which I know enough of to get in trouble, but not an expert at, is to do this. Just let's say we agreed to do it. I would imagine that it would require a change in the enterprise contract with Microsoft to get this done. So again, we're talking about city attorney and procure. I'm not listing this as a bad thing. I'm saying, to enforce it where it's actually in the T's and C's with Microsoft that email is set up a certain way, and have to change the contract.
So I understand that there's a hurdle in ordering departments to do it, and apparently that order would also invoke the contract with Microsoft. So let's put that aside for a second. What is it the place of your department to send out a best practices memo to other departments in terms of how you recommend they deal with email? Is that within the scope of your existing?
I would say we could do that, but it would have to be with city attorney advice before we did it, because again, I don't know all the rules and laws that would apply to doing things with email specifically.
Sure. So the city attorney would need to sign off. No problem.
Yeah.
What are your reservations, other than the city attorney needing to sign off on it, from recommending that your department suggest best practices in order to identify these immediate disclosure requests and sending them onward to an email that would be monitored with the regularity required in order to conform with the immediate disclosure requirements of the law?
Okay, off the top of my head, and I have to really talk to some of our internal people to give you a thorough answer, would be that question of the email system is a decentralized system. It was put in to allow the departments a lot of freedom to control it on their own. So, even a best practices letter like that, I'm not the technical expert enough, and the contractual expert to find out whether we could do that. I'm happy to find out and bring it back to this committee.
I have a different suggestion that doesn't necessarily involve Department of Technology, and that would be to have the Board of Supervisors pass legislation, and hopefully the mayor will agree to it, to require a system-wide insertion or certain practice to make sure that the information is ubiquitous everywhere, whether it is on the footer of every email that gets sent out whether it's on that department or agency's website, so on and so forth.
So I'm not opposed to that tact, but it seems like this would be easier to accomplish than making a new law. If the Department of Technology is in favor of sending out a memo that addresses how immediate disclosure requests to various employees in various departments may not be responded, and this is one solution to it, and it actually ends up being adopted by the departments, this may work faster, shortcut a debate amongst different wings of the supervisors, et cetera, et cetera. I like that as a backup plan, but this seems like a potentially quicker, more direct approach.
So I have a different. The reason why I'm bringing this up is, if not imposing something in a more of a top-down kind of way, and taking more of the approach of getting buy-in. The Committee on IT is probably the only committee where almost all the department heads of almost every single department that has technology in it meet. And you can address nearly every single department. Am I right? Almost pretty much most departments?
Not every department attends. You're talking about COIT?
COIT.
Not every department attends COIT, no.
But there are a lot of departments that are under word could get out pretty well if all the participants of COIT were to adopt a program like this, and then make sure through whatever sub departments or agencies that they control.
So, okay, for years there's been various attempts to do what you're proposing to do. Gavin Newsom sent out an executive order saying you will buy 100% recycled paper no matter what. I dare any of you to look in your offices now and tell me that there really is 100% recycled paper in there. But that was essentially city law for years. DHR sent out a directive that every single computer that you turn on has a disclaimer when you turn it on that says essentially, I'm not going to do anything bad, and you have to click that before you get online. Many departments I'm in these days, and that doesn't happen anymore. The signature that you put on your city email is under the control of the individual user at the present time. Mine says, please don't waste. I'm scattering at whatever it says. So it can be done what you want to do, and as I made that point early on, it's going to work for about a day, and then there'll be a new employee, there'll be a new department head who's going in a different direction. I'm in agreement with you. We need to be better at this. I do think that the vast majority of these requests do go to the proper place in a department. We can do a better job of having department heads tell their managers, that these things go. The PIOs also, as a group, are working toward this common sunshine, sort of process. It's where there are individual smaller problems. That's the 1% that takes 90% of our time to deal with. Mm-hmm. We are happy to help the Arts Commission resolve whatever their problem is, because again, we've got a working system too. So whatever the problem was, we do have the actual technical expertise to help them.
I guess what we're trying to do is find a technical fix to solve a variety of human behavior.
Yeah. And I'm trying to sort of answer your question by also taking into recognition that if everybody recalls, we were however many email systems we were on before 0365, mm-hmm. I think it was like 30 of them. Imagine us having this conversation over that many different email systems. Mm-hmm. We are essentially down to 2 now. But to get to that place, there had to be still control left to the departments on how they were going to run their email systems, even though we are on 1.
Would it be possible for you to talk to Microsoft and figure out if there is an 0365 representative who'd be available to talk to this committee?
I can do that.
Okay. So we need to wrap this up for now. We'll take public comments in a minute. We got to Yeah, please go ahead.
Let me just make one concluding point, which is that I don't really care which mechanism we utilize to get this down on paper. But right now, when we have situations where someone files a sunshine complaint and the department's defense is it wasn't heard, if we can point to a memo that points out this as a viable solution, even if it's not the recommended solution or anything, but an outside of this agency, preferably, pointing to a viable solution in the step-by-step process, then as this issue comes up department by department, we can hopefully steer them in the right direction by pointing to them to this memo. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
So do we need to take action on this today? Does anybody have any actions that we could take?
I don't think so. I guess my only suggestion for member Josh Wolf, maybe in the EOT committee, is should we maybe formulate a system-wide memo and have that be sent out system-wide as to, like, Sunshine Task Force recommends these best practices for dealing with these issues because they're beginning to come up.
So again, I'm totally on board with having it come out of VOTC, but to whatever extent the Department of Technology recognizes that this is something they can get behind, I think it's better coming from them than coming from us. And I'd be happy to work with them to see that it comes out. So whichever way is most efficient and most effective at being heard, I'm in favor of.
A joint memo?
Sure.
Would you be open to that?
Well,
Mr.
I can't
Chairman?
speak for my department head. Let me go back.
Who is your department head now?
Currently, it's Ken Bukowski. He's
Okay.
the interim CIO.
Okay.
Hopefully, we're going to have a new one within the next couple of months.
Okay. It's taking a long time.
Well, it's an important hire.
It is.
So do we need a motion in order for that, or are we?
No.
Okay, so let's take some public comment.
Sure.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll have some public comment now.
Okay.
Has the Arts Commission ever reached out to you?
Not that I'm aware of, but I wouldn't know.
Oh, okay. That's all very interesting, and I'm kind of not surprised that the Arts Commission has come up in this discussion. Once again, the Arts Commission has never reached out to these people who seem close by and available and willing to help, and most of their issues are the generic mailbox has been riddled with problems. I don't think it's been riddled with problems. I think it's problems with employees there that are not monitoring that email. If someone goes away, maybe a designated person just didn't do it, which is why I spend so much time here. Another issue is that here that they're saying that a lot of the control is within the department. I think it's a little more than that with the Arts Commission. I think it's Kate Patterson who has a lot of control on this. And that's a big problem because in their new website, which went up about 2 months ago, there's not even a mention of Sunshine nowhere on that thing except for the meetings page. So unless somebody is well aware of the Sunshine Ordinance and how to send a document request, they're going to be left floating around. And the chances would be very high that the request wouldn't be answered at all. And not much has changed over there, and I'm actually shocked that they could easily have reached out to these people who are close by and willing to help, and they never did that. And my view is that unless they're forced to do it, they're not going to.
Any further public comment?
Yes.
Help me out procedurally.
You're part and parcel to
I know, but I do have an idea for the committee which might help before you finally decide what you're going to do.
Sure.
I have a suggestion which I don't believe would violate the Brown Act. If Commissioner Wolf wanted to make an appointment with me, I could put him together with some of our DT staff to specifically go over some of the technical issues that you've all discussed here. And again, he would have been free to come back and talk to you about it also then. So just a suggestion.
Which Commissioner Wolf?
Not Commissioner Wolf. That's most questions.
Sure.
Excuse the rude pointing.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. I'll leave my card for you.
Great.
All right, so we can move on to the next item now.
Next on the agenda is item number 5, file number 17050, hearing electronic archives and backups with the Department of Technology.
Welcome back.
Back again.
Member Bruce Wolf.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with the introduction of this issue?
So interestingly enough, that the subject came up, I was listening to the Ethics Commission meeting last night, and they had presented, staff had presented their retention policy, which included a provision on accessing archived emails or emails that have gone beyond the retention period that may be archived in a backup somewhere, and that they felt that they didn't have a responsibility to have to go back and get those, retrieve those if there was a sunshine request, which I found a little odd to me, because we've had some cases here, namely Wooding versus Recreation and Parks Department around the Commonwealth Club issue. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that,
No.
but just real quick, there was some issues around a public forum that the Commonwealth Club was putting on that Recreation and Parks Department was going to have some speakers on, and they had. There was a forum that didn't include them. They wanted to be included, and then tried to change something about that. When Mr. Wooding came and asked for any communications between Recreation and Parks Department and the Commonwealth Club, they said there was no records that were responsive. Meanwhile, Mr. Wooding had contacted the Commonwealth Club and did get those communications. So it was not a good day for Rec and Park at that point. And what had ended up happening was the task force had ordered the Recreation and Parks Department to retrieve through backups emails that, and this was very in recent. It was like within 2 months. Mm-hmm. And they were able to actually find those emails, and they were able to actually produce them. And so that was a precedent-setting case for us, to be able to order that public documents be produced, and that they possibly had overextended their retention policy at that time. This was many, many, many years ago. So the question I have is with regards to that's just a kind of a strange example, but it is an active example. That there could be any number of other examples with regards to, like when the Sunshine Ordinance was first created, we didn't have all this technology, and everything was stored in Iron Mountain and paper and boxes, and people needed that extra time.
Still is.
Right. And to go out there and rummage through to get the documents. Mm-hmm. Now, because we have the ability to do backups, and on top of that, archiving and maybe journaling, which is kind of like indexing those archives. What systems are set up for that? I know in past years when I used to go to COIT, there was a lot of discussion at that point before O365 came up, was how we're going to centralize a lot of stuff. We were going to try to move everybody into 2 or 3 data centers, create virtual machines, and all that. Everybody got very scared and nervous. It took many years and many CTOs to finally get to as close as possible to that. But by the same token, we have a responsibility to preserve our public documents. And while there are retention policies, there are documents that maybe should go well beyond a retention limit. And I'm just wondering what policies there are, what tools are you if something reaches too far into, I would say, a security issue, please say so. But I think it's important for us to understand what the process is, what backups are, where, are there archives, are they available for being searched on a snapshot level basis, maybe, or, that kind of thing. If you can just let's start the conversation.
All right. So I was talking to my boss about this morning, that I would be here today, and I said, when we got to this part, I hope the group was ready, because I could keep you here till 9 o'clock talking about all of this. I'll try to be brief, though. Your question spanned from a single piece of paper to a computer file to what goes on a server to a whole different thing about email. And, they're all very different things from each other. So I'll try to do this in order and succinctly for you.
But it's a comprehensive question, just about how things are backed up.
And I'm going to explain.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, first off, again, we do have the Sunshine Ordinance, which says basically you won't throw things out. You have a document retention program. Within that, there is a citywide policy on document retention. Naomi Kelly's office has done it. A lot of departments just use it word for word. Some departments rebrand it under their own label, but use it also. I can't speak if they actually follow it, but there is a citywide policy for it. The second thing is there is a central repository for information about all of those documents, how long they're kept and where they are. And I do believe that the Sunshine Task Force owns it. It's the Index of Records. And departments are supposed to keep that updated. The last major redo of it, I think, was about 18 months ago. So that's, the background then for what you're supposed to do with these things. And then the next piece is, email and, again, documents are two completely different systems. So let's talk about documents first. The Board of Supervisors, as an example, has servers at 200 Paul. We run 200 Paul, but what the board chooses to put on their servers is their business. The Department of Technology does not get involved in that. So those documents are their responsibility to comply with policy. It is their responsibility to set up backups for them. We do not get involved. We only provide essentially the closet that they are in. Okay. So, when it comes to a department, mysteriously not having the files that are being looked for, it really gets down to the question, were you complying with policy to get that done, okay? And again, not to take you too far down a road, but this gets all the more complicated, for example, because OCA right now is working on a new large citywide scanning contract that departments are really wanting to get rid of their legacy documents. Well, wait a minute. I reviewed that RFP and I had a lot of questions for them about the Sunshine Ordinance, also about how they're sending documents to an outside vendor and how they're being secure and how they're being secured coming back. So that's a component of what you're asking about also. Okay. And finally, about the email, that's not on our servers. That's on Microsoft's servers. But there is a city policy about email retention, and I would be happy to forward it to this group. It was signed by Miguel Gamino last year, and it specifies how long emails are kept. Now, question back for you in the Rec Park case, when did that originally start? How long ago?
That case?
Yes.
That case was in, I think, 2010.
Okay, so that would have been Lotus Notes emails probably.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, there is another layer of the problem. We've gone from an old system to a new system. Yes, Lotus Notes was archived, what was on there. They are trying to deactivate that server. I mean, how many years are we supposed to keep emails? I think the policy says, I'm going to tell you it's 2 years, but I could be wrong.
That's correct.
Okay, so if it's from 2010, Rec Park has the right to say we don't.
Here's the scenario. Most business environments, you have, like a couple of times a day, you'll have a snapshot. Somebody loses a file. A few hours later, it could be retrieved if something had accidentally deleted or something. Then there are daily backups. There are maybe weekly or monthly backups, and then over time there may be an annual or a biennial backup, and then the things go to archive.
Right.
Okay, so I think I want to understand. I think we need to understand whether there is a policy that exists for such type of posterity. I mean, how do we as a government, besides the laws that get passed, deal with public records for posterity reasons? I mean, otherwise it would just be the newspaper and the code book, right? So that would be one question. The other question is I'm a little floored that the Office 365, that the emails are not stored on a platform that is locally exists and is in ownership of the city. That if it lives on Office 365 on Microsoft servers in Redmond, Washington, somewhere, or somewhere else in the world, that's a little concerning too. What happens if that system goes down and then we don't have access to those public records at that point? So I'm a little concerned about localization.
Okay.
So two questions there.
So I'm going to ask Chad to help me with the second question if I get it wrong. But I'll get to your first one. Again, it's funny, we were talking about your question this morning because, one of the other things I do is the service level agreement of our department and the services and the charges. Mm-hmm. And what is becoming a major problem for us is the amount of digital files that are getting stored up. There's a cost to all of that, and it's no different really than the Iron Mountain question. I mean, a few years ago there was a whole thing about how much the city was wasting in outdated old documents that really could be thrown out, but were being stored, there and just sitting in boxes. Well, we have the same problem now developing with digital data. I believe the number for DPW was they have 60 terabytes. Yeah, 60 terabytes of data, plus they want that backed up. Okay,
wow.
So really, it's the same question. There's retention rules for this stuff. They need to go through their files and start getting rid of things that are not important because we're going to charge them for it. Mm-hmm. So, and it's just a cost to the public for that kind of thing. So, in my mind, I'm not the department head. The rules are really very similar to traditional documents. There is retention records for them. You should be on top of that with document management systems and be purging things that are not necessary and not required by law. Okay? Now, the email question for you, I do believe at the time, and believe me, this went on for several years, about, are we going to use Google email? Are we going to use Microsoft? And on back and forth was that very question about what about it being on a local server? And I think, and Chad's going to come and correct me wrong, the contract specifies that we know where the city's data is and that it is always backed up in a second location. Do you want to hit that, Craig?
Yeah, so with Office 365, there are no traditional backups. There's no snapshots that we can access. Instead, what happens is our data is replicated to multiple data centers across the U.S. So to answer your question about what happens if a data center goes down, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, but essentially, Microsoft will flip a switch, it'll point us at a new data center so we can make sure that we can continue accessing that. As far as traditional backups, those don't exist with Office 365. Your data, because it is replicated, it is always highly available. However, if a mailbox for some reason is permanently deleted, there's no way to get it back. Microsoft does not make backups available for us to kind of go back and say, hey, I want this mailbox from last week, or I want to know what was in this mailbox 2 weeks ago. So we don't have that option of going back, which is kind of probably what maybe you're used to with like Lotus Notes, where you had these tapes and stuff like that. So we don't have access to that.
Not really. I mean, in my own office, I use Zimbra, which is a drop-in replacement for my Microsoft Exchange, which is kind of an in-between between that and the Google Suite system. Built in, has both backups, daily, nightly, and archive and journaling specifically for audits. If for any reason we get audited and they want, the IRS or some other federal agency wants to come in and have a look-see.
No, so there are solutions. So so this is sort of out of the box with Office 365. There are additional services you can sign up for. I believe actually, I've only been here with the city for three years, but I believe before I started, they actually did implement a journaling system for Office 365 briefly. I think some departments took issue with that, and the city, maybe perhaps a city attorney, I can't speak for sure, but they decided that that didn't make sense to move forward with. So we did briefly have a journaling system that was removed. I don't believe departments. Again, this is one of those things where we do offer to control the department. So if a department did want to have their own journaling system, we would work with them to implement it. But so far, I'm not aware of any in place.
Go ahead, I'll ask.
So you were talking.
We'll need to wrap it up.
You were talking earlier about how if a mailbox is permanently deleted, it's unrecoverable. So what safeguards are in place to prevent a department, say, Joe Blow gets canned from the department of whatever? What safeguards are in place to prevent his mailbox from being deleted before that 2-year retention period is up?
Well, presumably those safeties are on sort of the HR process side. So if someone is let go with the city, then typically HR will notify IT ahead of time. Accounts are disabled. You limit their access so they don't have the opportunity to do that.
So I'm not concerned about them deleting their email. That's a whole different thing. I'm saying what is done to preserve that email for 2 years after that employee is gone, and how is that accessed? What is the process there?
I think I know the answer, but can you restate the question?
All right. So Joe Blow works for the Department of whatever for 7 years, and he leaves to go to the city of Springfield.
Right.
His emails for the first 2 years that he's gone have to be retained under the city retention policy. The fact that he's gone doesn't matter.
Right.
So what is the process to preserve all those emails should a public records request come in during that intervening period?
I don't know.
Well, so when someone who's responsible for managing email leaves, they're going to have a replacement person who's trained. Just because someone leaves, it doesn't mean their mailbox automatically disappears. It still requires a manual intervention for someone to go in and say, okay, this mailbox is no longer needed. So that isn't automated. It does stick around until someone manually goes in and gets rid of the mailbox.
Right, but it sounds like basically they shouldn't do that for 2 years after someone leaves unless there's some process to secure that email during that intervening period, and I'm not hearing...
Yeah, and that process, that policy is up to the individual departments. Departments are responsible for their own mail retention, so if it's part of their policy or their process, they may back up that mailbox, save it to a physical disk someplace, maybe they'll keep it on a server. Maybe their policy doesn't require them to back it up for whatever reason. So that really happens at the department level.
Great, thank you.
Wait, and there's actually a second part to that question. If there are attached files on that email falling under document retention, Department of Technology in its email retention policy explicitly tells the department citywide the email system is not the system of record for documents. They are to be taken off of email and stored on server systems.
But I don't understand. How is it that email is then treated as not a public document?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying really is that there's more of a safeguard against documents themselves.
Gotcha.
We
Okay.
very actively tell departments, don't use the email system as your storage cabinet.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we need to get moving along. Is there any other pressing questions or any concluding thoughts? Otherwise, we can take some public comment.
Yeah, I'd like for this subject to remain on the agenda. I think it demands a little more fleshing out beyond the Department of Technology, just for the sake of understanding how the posterity of information, the fact that if a mailbox gets, quote unquote, accidentally deleted, for some reason, you know, a new systems person came in, they hit a wrong button, not familiar with the system, and it can't be retrieved, that's problematic. Or some nefarious activity is happening, and all of a sudden, poof, it disappears with no required backup or archiving as far as oversight. Having somebody be able to make sure that a department is actually doing that, that's problematic. I'd like to explore some of those questions in the future.
Do you have a motion you wanted to make on that, or can we just bring it up?
I wasn't thinking about a motion.
Okay.
If you were thinking about something you'd like to suggest, I'm open to hearing what it could be or might be.
I mean, Victor, does it require a motion for me to just put it on next agenda
no.
as well?
No,
it's
just
fine.
making a request
So-
that we make.
So I don't know whether there's actually a problem here, but based on how this goes at a department level, I would like to be reassured that the employees who have left, that their emails were properly secured by various departments, and I don't know what, if any, approach to checking that we could employ, but that is a concern that I'm now curious about.
I'm just thinking because there are, in other workflows, there's not so much of it, there's kind of checks and balances versus a chain of command. So there are checks and balances. So when, like when an RFP goes out, there's all different departments that have to be engaged with regards to that to make sure there's proper oversight, including the city attorney. So why wouldn't the same thing with the city's public records have the same kind of attention? Is really kind of my question with regards to that. And that, I think it includes your question too.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll take some public comment now. If there's any public comment, we've got to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Bradford.
I think there are two parts to this that I find kind of troubling. The first one is, of course, the Arts Commission. The last statement that he made is that email is not supposed to be a place where they store information, and that's how they file and keep information. That is exactly what the Arts Commission does. By them sending or copying 5 different people at the Arts Commission, they are that's how they store information, that's how they access it, and that's a very troublesome way of doing things, and it's not the correct way. And then the second thing was the suggestion that somebody from the IT department at Microsoft come and talk to you. Maybe they could make suggestions about this.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on to the next item.
Next on the agenda is item number 6, file number 17052, hearing, creation of a Sunshine Ordinance Task Force database of order of determination, case law library, and precedents.
So do we have a speaker on this today, or this just
No.
for us? Okay, then. So we got about maybe like 15 minutes or so we can discuss this, and then we just got to finish up with some other bits and bobs before we go. But I do see that in our packet we have 150 pages of an RFP.
Can I direct folks to
Sure.
the pertinent pages? If you go to page 89, this is where kind of the actual functions and technical kind of what they call expectations. This is what the clerk's office is looking for in a system. And I think this area is what we're most interested in, that we could either enhance a question. This is probably, do you know if this has already gone out, Victor?
This is on our website, so it has gone out.
It has gone out, okay. Well, be it as it may, this might be we can have some additional questions submitted, so during the selection process, they could possibly be asked by the clerk's office, since we're not part and parcel to that process. But we could at least submit some questions if we find the system may work for us, and if it does, that we could ask those questions.
So beyond the identifying our specific needs within the larger RFP, do we know is the license that they're getting going to include any department's use? Can we automatically utilize this technology? Do we need to appeal to the Board of Soups to be included within that grouping, et cetera?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. On my quick scan of this, I didn't see. This was specifically focused on their legislative platform, so it would be more of an extension of that.
Right. So
I don't know, because this was already in process at the time that we inquired with the clerk about it.
Right. It seems that whatever system we end up using not only would be helpful for us, but potentially other committees. So I would like to see us engage whichever part of the Board of Soups, I don't know whether it would start with the clerk, about including all commissions and whatever task force, et cetera, as being able to utilize this technology solution, so that conversation can happen right away. Real fast, in terms of reviewing what's in there, it looks pretty solid and a significant improvement from what we have right now. I just want to make sure that the license that we have allows this solution to be used not only by us, by other commissions, et cetera.
I guess the question could be posed to the clerk. We could probably get a fairly quick answer out of that.
Most likely that would need to be negotiated. Each additional use by each additional commission will probably need to be negotiated.
I mean, it would also potentially be possible to negotiate a blanket lease that allows all city departments to utilize this technology solution, which might be...
That would go beyond the clerk of the board. That would be more of a citywide issue.
But I mean, the Board of Soups going to be approving this RFP. Oh, is this RFP decided by the clerk?
It's only for the legislative branch.
I know, but is it decided by the clerk, or does it need to go in front of the Board of Soups?
Well, it's administrative. I'm sure that they would have to approve the contract, but it doesn't. I'm sure it would have to go. They would have to approve the. They have to make the award,
right,
first of all, and approve the contract, and then I'm not sure how it works with whether you have to engage the city administrator or not with regards to that. I don't know how
I don't believe we've done that in the past. This is
it's
probably
internal.
the third time we've done this.
Okay. So it may be very internal just to the legislative branch. They have their own budget, their own discretion to spend it, in that kind of way. And so as far as any entity that is under the auspices of the Board of Supervisors, which we are with regards to dollars and cents, a system like this could possibly be extended to us, but not, let's say, like the Animal Welfare Commission.
Because that's under the mayor's?
It's under the executive branch. So and the Department of Technology essentially is the mayor's Department of Technology.
Right.
It's not. It does work system wide, but essentially it's executive branch. It's really focused on executive branch. So, but we can ask the question. I think it's a perfect question to ask. I don't know whether this RFP, whether that question needs to be included in this RFP. But the question is whether at the negotiating point of talking dollars and cents, whether they can negotiate having, an open license, a blanket license.
I mean, whether a blanket license is available is potentially something to discuss down the road, but I think that the conversation of how do we get in on this system that you're hiring someone to build needs to happen as soon as possible. So that
I've made that request of the clerk.
Great.
So, and that was the purpose of putting it on the agenda today, so we can actually have a look. And I believe the only way we can kind of not necessarily inject ourselves in the process, but be helpful in making something that is kind of more comprehensively usable for any other entity that operates under the auspices of the Board of Supervisors, that it would be workable for them. And so I think it's worthwhile for us to review those questions starting on page 89 and see if
Are you looking at the table of contents? Is that what's?
yes, the table. It's actually it's an appendix. And that's basically the scope of the features that in both workflow, and there's some interesting workflows that are engraphed on subsequent pages that give a little kind of an idea of how it needs to work. Which probably would be, for those of us that are more visually inclined, to see how those things work, and may bring up some other questions. But we also have our own specific needs, and I think those, we should identify what those are that are specific for us, and then we can determine whether that's already built into their proposal or not. And that could be questions that could be brought up during the RFP process, because they have to ask the same questions for every applicant.
I'm not sure if this has been covered, but for the agenda packets that are publicly available, is there a way to, the formatting, I think it requires Firefox and not Chrome in order to be able to click through. There's a bunch of, the way we have the PDF set up right now for the agenda packets often include a bunch of the materials related to this. I'm wondering if maybe we could add a solution to that in there where it's...
I use Chrome, and it works fine.
I've always had issues with
ad blocker,
but
some
the whole,
extension.
I don't know what it is. The whole PDF format, though, for the agenda meetings, a lot of times the information in the meetings is the same as things that are getting pushed out through.
Okay, so that's a different issue, and one of the things that we haven't gotten into it yet, but that I want to work with Victor on is the use of bookmarks in PDFs.
Well, the reason I think it might not be a totally different issue is because a lot of the materials that people are putting in there will eventually, the agenda, the information in the packets is very often going to overlap with the types of information we're trying to put in this public database, right? Mm-hmm. So what if we developed a solution where when we were creating the agenda packets, it was sort of all feeding into the same system, and you could see whatever the outcome was that was decided here, it would all be recorded in the same place.
Sure. I think that was one of our interests, actually.
Okay. Yeah, just seen that called out specifically.
It definitely seems like the same issue because this system is designed to create those agendas. So,
okay.
it's designed to be one system, and however, there is definitely some weaknesses in the way that the agendas are created with the existing tool set, and it isn't very well addressed in this RFP. So I think Member Eldon or Commissioner Eldon makes a really important point there. Another thing that seems to be missing from this document is how this instantiation should be cross-searchable with other instantiations, so that if multiple agencies or commissions are using this platform, you should be able to both search the Sunshine Task Force level, but also the all city document level. And then finally, and this may be in here in some ways, 2.2.6 seems like it might address this, but basically predefined data fields or tags to be able to sort of pre-sort information. And there's things pointing to it in addition to 2.26, but it doesn't seem to be explicitly spelled out, at least not that I've seen.
I had a question. So on page so it's 1.7 on page 94. And I'm curious if this is going to actually just create the tool that we already need within the existing RFP.
I'm sorry, say which question?
So it's on page 94.
Yeah. What question?
So, no, it's the whole thing, 1.7,
Oh, okay.
legislative bodies, boards, commissions, and
Right.
task forces. So this seems to be creating a tool for bodies like
Oh,
us.
yeah, there
And
you
so,
go.
Mike, I'm curious whether this actually meets our needs and whether whether this is something we can actually just look at more and see if this is something we could use to serve our purposes.
That's a good point. I didn't quite get that far. Sure. I think maybe that would be a good place to start, actually.
Do you know what the status of this RFP is right now?
I
This-
believe there was a recent response to questions that they had. That was last Friday, I believe. And I believe, that's as far as I know. I'm not working on it directly.
Okay.
It's probably, these things usually take several months before.
There's something that's really hard to sort of navigate on this RFP, which is that presumably some of these features are public facing and others are only from the city facing side, and it's not clear which ones are which. So for example, 1.7.6, would the public necessarily be able to identify these waivers? I mean, it's a public document, so they probably should be able to, but I don't really see the city setting this up so that anyone can just have a menu choice that's like, oh, let's see what commissioners have absences frequently.
I see what you're saying. On a kind of a tertiary note, it's been my suggestion, somewhat vision, and I think we've spoken about this before, that all documents, well, currently, because they're using the Office 365 system, they're using SharePoint and for document management. And pretty much you can set it up so if there was a check, you can have a tick box to make something public or have it remain private. And if it was to go public, you can then choose where on the website, according to like the index of records on a website, where that thing should go, which would help reduce a lot of sunshine complaints because the information would be readily accessible unless somebody needed it in hard copy. So,
So we only have about 12 minutes left
Okay.
before we need to vacate. Is there a motion or some sort of action we need to take on this, or should we just?
I think what we should do, I think we should review, at least start with 1.7 on page 94 and see if that applies to kind of the laundry list of things that we've been talking about. And will it get us closer to what we're looking for as far, because what we're looking for is the ability to search, have a compendium of orders of determination so that we can have a library from which members can refer to of past cases, going in archive format. So,
Okay. So let's take some public comment then. And seeing no public comment, I guess we can move on to the next item, which, I'm just going to let Victor call that then.
Next on the agenda is item number 7, file number 17051, hearing disclosure of public records contained on personal devices and accounts.
So this is Smith v. San Jose, which we continue to try to, there seem to be more cases coming up related to this. Member Wolf and I attended a all-day workshop conference sort of thing put on by the California State Bar on open records that dealt a lot with Smith v. San Jose. I just want to ask Member Wolf, what direction should we be going with this today in this hearing?
I I think there's one of the things that I found very interesting, and at least as an example, was that an email can have half of it, or certain passages could be of personal nature, and other parts of it are actually business related, and which parts should be redacted and which parts shouldn't be redacted, and who should review those things. And I thought that discussion was a bit enlightening, because it got really into the weeds. So that could go for, like, they were talking about text messaging, and how to do that kind of thing. The other thing is training. Like, couldn't stop saying the word training on by every department, making sure all employees understood what the process is for production when a request is made under the Smith v. San Jose rule. Even though it's kind of vague as to what that should be, I think it's going to come. But I think what's interesting is we just got a request from the city of San Diego. I don't remember. It was
San Diego Airport Authority.
San Diego Airport Authority asking us about what our trainings are around implementing this.
Do you know who sent that? Off the top of your head?
I don't know the name of the person, but
Okay.
it was some representative from the Airport Authority in San Diego.
Right. And here, it's I got it. It's Renessa Santos Packard. She's the attorney, the Office of General Counsel at the San Diego International Airport, at the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority. So, plus we have a request from a commission, I think, that wants a training on Sunshine also. So I think, we're going to be asked about this stuff a little more often. But I think what's more important is when cases come up regarding this, that we're prepared and we have a very clear, everybody has a clear concept of how this law should be implemented and whatnot. And we have some sort of, at some point, develop a collective position on certain aspects of how this gets implemented. There were a lot of documents that were, all the slide decks from the conference they gave to us. I've asked Victor to put it on EOT's agenda for review, and maybe help recommend which ones we should put up on the website as resources. And I think if there's anything that EOT could glean from that, that might be helpful for the task force, I think would be good also. Was there anything else on your end? I wasn't there for the whole day.
Yeah, no.
So.
I mean, one of the things that I thought might be helpful if we're discussing it to inform the committee about what kind of decisions the task force should be making as we adjudicate things like this. I was thinking that it might be helpful for us to sort of circulate a request for opinions on this and put it out to the put it out publicly, but specifically we would want to make sure that, like, say, Calaware responds, maybe the City Employees Union responds, and we get various ideas of how they think that it should be applied and what, and that way we can sit down, we can look and say, okay, here are a bunch of different options for us to do.
Shall we put together a survey?
Yeah, I can put, yeah, I can do that. So I think we probably need a motion for that, though.
I will make a motion.
Second.
So public comment on that? Is that the next step?
May I ask specifically what the motion is? The motion is to conduct a survey.
Yeah, yes, motion maker.
Conduct a survey of the appropriate policies around access of personal employee. Is there any detail?
Let me ferret out. We want to. It's a survey of various
stakeholders,
open government stakeholder groups and experts to collect information about the implementation of Smith v. San Jose. And the various groups will be identified by the chair of this committee.
Yeah, I think we can do it. We can put a public notice and then we can email specific groups, yeah. Public comment next? Is that where we're at?
You don't have to respond. This is a question. So you said there was a rule with Smith v. San Jose. What is that? Can you explain what you're talking about?
So Smith v. San Jose was a decision over whether public records on personal devices or on personal accounts were subject to the California Public Records Act. So what was the outcome? The outcome is that generally, yes, that if a public record does reside on, say, somebody's cell phone or home computer, then that would be subject to the California. That would be a responsive record to the California Public Records Act. We have the whole opinion that was in a packet, I think, at a previous Sunshine Task Force meeting that you can find that the city attorney had written. And without further public comment, we can take is it time for a vote on that.
On that motion, Member Josh Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Bruce Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Chair Moss.
Aye.
Moss, aye. The motion passes.
Did Eldon not need
Not
to?
a necessarily official member, but, I mean, the
did
membership
make the
of this
motion.
committee, it's ad hoc, actually. You can call Member Eldon for a vote.
Member Eldon.
Fully official.
That's at the
It's an ad hoc.
discretion of the chair.
Yeah,
and
it's an ad hoc committee.
I
so-
would, for the record, I would like Mr. Chair, Member Eldon's vote.
Okay.
So-
There you go.
Aye.
It was my intention for this to be an open committee for anybody who wanted to participate.
So with that, can we move on to the next item?
Next on the agenda, item number 8, announcements, comments, questions, future agenda items, and pending calendar.
So we probably need to schedule the next meeting for this, which probably should be next month or so, or we'll...
Yes, I believe the fourth Monday of the month prior to the complaints committee seems to be working.
You mean the Tuesday?
Oh, yes, fourth Tuesday. If you would like, we could try to start a little bit earlier to give yourselves more time.
Up to you. I don't know what everybody
I
else's
mean,
schedule
I can
is.
do a little earlier, but I'm not sure about the other members.
My schedule's whatever, so.
All right, so that is Tuesday, we're
I
looking at...
believe it'd be June the 27th.
It would be helpful that if we try to no earlier than 3:30.
Yes, that's about the earliest we can get it.
Okay, so we'll do 3:30 then on the 20th?
27th,
On the 27th?
7th.
I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
Yes, 27th.
Okay. That's fine. I know that there had been some discussion about talking about the police department system. I think Victor may have spoken to the police department that they wanted to actually bring in some other, that they're not the only ones doing that.
Well, with my discussion with Lieutenant Whalen was that she did not have the expertise to talk about the technical side of the matter, and she would prefer to bring in either the contractor or somebody else to talk about that portion of it, as she is a user of the program and not really an expert in it.
Yeah. So do we feel that this is appropriate for this committee, or that it should maybe go before one of the other standing committees?
I don't know. We have another chair from another committee here. What do you think?
What do you think? I think EOTC Chair Josh Wolf.
I mean, I think it could go either way. Is it really a technology issue at its core?
I mean, part of me thinks that this stems from AB 2853, which the Compliance and Amendment Committee had written the original draft of a letter warning them on this. So my thought that maybe that committee might be better, but this committee might be good too. I mean, the issue is that they've created a online submission system for public records requests, which regardless of whether you signed up for, their system, they automatically enroll you into it as soon as you've filed a public records request with them. And so to the extent that they have an IT system that they are forcing you into, then yes, it is a technology issue.
So if you send a request through email, they'll process it, but put it through their system?
And send you.
It's not even email. The email will send you to a website, and you have to enter in your personal information in order to even make a request. It's almost like a paywall.
If I send an email with saying public records request, will they put it through themselves, or do I have to then visit the website and re-input my information?
I believe they will put it in, but you will, if you want to access your records when it's ready.
You have to click on that
Yeah,
thing.
you have to click and you have to sign in and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, when I did it, they just redirected me to that. I got an auto response email saying, in order to make your request, you need to go to this website. And
Let's deal with it here.
Okay. Then I will talk to Victor about agendizing that.
Yes, and we would appreciate specific questions and or thoughts that I can send to the police department, and so that they know who to bring.
Okay, I can do that.
So I've got a potential item, which I guess would be an informational item, but the entire time that the task force has been going on, many of our regular attendees have been asking for it to be streamed, and there's now cameras in the room. So I'd like to find out what the future use of these cameras is, whether our meetings will be recorded in the future. And I'm also curious as to whether each of these, is there 5 or 6 cameras in here? Each of the 5 streams, whether they're kept or whether it's only the edited stream that is maintained as a record.
I think maybe that'd be better for us to get briefed on that at the full task force at the next meeting, because especially if it's active by then.
I don't care what forum it's in. Those are my 2 questions.
so maybe we should have SFGov TV come in. I don't know who controls
I am not
the
sure
production.
if they have a policy on it. All I understand is that they're equipping all the rooms with cameras. I don't know if there's any plans to record any additional meetings or so forth.
Okay.
I haven't been so informed.
Who would we inquire?
I believe just the name that I usually deal with would be Jack Chin, but I can I can ask the question and forward the
What
information.
department is he in?
I believe he's with IT.
Okay. All right, well, let's make that recommendation to the full task force for the June meeting. We don't even know if they may be turned on for. You don't know if it's going to be turned on for the June meeting, do you?
Wait,
They're
I'm
still
sorry,
working
are you
on installation at this time?
Are you suggesting putting it on the actual June agenda or at the June meeting discussing putting it on a future agenda?
No. I'm asking that this body request that it be put on the June's meeting for discussion so that we can make a decision together. I mean, we could, as this committee, we can ask it just of ourselves, and then we won't get an answer for a month.
I'm fine with getting information in the June meeting. I just was trying to parse what you're saying.
Okay, so my suggestion is that this body make a recommendation to have it that question be put before the task force in the June meeting so that an official memorandum. I mean, I could just ask. I mean, I don't think it demands anything too formal.
Right. I don't think there's anything for us to decide so much as finding out when it's going to go live and what they do with the images.
We'll find out. I'll work with Victor. We'll draft a memo and find out what's going on.
Anything else on that? On item 8? Public comment on item 8? Seeing none?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn? Can I just do that?
There should be, if I moved it, somebody should second it.
Second.
You can say, take it by acclamation.
Can we take that by acclamation?
Seeing no objection.
Seeing no objection?
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned. We're adjourned.